Good day, everyone. Trust you're doing well today. So, welcome to another segment of stock analysis and diving into what's going on in the Nigeria stock market together. So, yesterday, Monday, 25th of August, right? So, the ASI closed at 239,000 points, which was down if you consider the daily change, right? Basically, it was 0.11% down yesterday. That's about 265.99 points down, right? However, daily market cap for yesterday was 154.40 trillion. That was a drop, by 137.12 billion from last week Friday, right? However, some analysts who work with institutional buyers are beginning to say that foreign investors are stepping back, from the Nigerian market due to pre-election uncertainties, right? And high interest rate elsewhere because they noticed foreign participation has dropped to 5.6%, of total trades in the NGX lately. But if you ask me, right, I'll say even within us, local investors, it's obvious that many institutional buyers are moving some money into fixed income due to how attractive rates are looking now. It was even on the news last week that CBN now allows retail and companies' money into automobile instruments. So when you think about it, it actually does make sense because think about companies like Unilever and GTCO that pack their excess cash into investments like treasury bills and now automobiles, right? So it will actually do make sense that institutional money will want to do the same, especially when rates are looking so attractive right now. So let's see the top gainers for yesterday. The top gainers were NCR, SFS Rate, Red Star X, RT Briscoe, UPL, UPDC, HM Call, Sunu Assurance, Japogo. And let's see the top losers for yesterday. The top losers were International Energy, Nimet, Honeyflower, VDF Group, Fidelity Bank, Guinea Insurance, FTG Insure, Austin Lars, FCMB, UBA. Now let's analyze some trending stocks on the NGX together. The first one we're taking a look at is Firstholdco. So last week I've been telling us about, I've been sounding the alarm that Firstholdco will actually pull back this week. All right, so my prediction still holds. So yesterday it was on the news that Femi Otedola increases Firstholdco stake with fresh 12.58 billion shares acquisition. Now my prediction still holds because of what I'm saying here on the chart. So going by what is happening on the chart, Firstholdco is still likely to pull back because ASI is dipping. ASI is dipping too bad, right? And on Firstholdco, no fresh money is actually buying into this stock right now. If anything, money keeps going out of this stock in the sense that, in fact, institutional money, which is smart buyers, has left, right? They started leaving from here. So their activities is quite visible because they started leaving from here. See, they started dumping little by little. So, but it was obvious on the 30th of July, right? So it was quite obvious because huge volume of transaction was recorded. Sell volume, right, was recorded on this day. So after that, these are all FOMOs, FOMOs and hype buyers. Although I warned against it, I did warn against it, but the news is part of it. When news keeps hyping stocks and fundamentals and everything, this is what tends to happen. Anyway, so in the long time, don't get me wrong, in the long time, Firstholdco is a good bank, good stock, but technical analysis shows that it's overbought right now. And at this point, except a smart money or institutional buyer comes in just to perform this sort of miracle, right? So I don't think institutional buyer will come. Institutional buyers don't buy from the top. They buy, in fact, they wait for you to sell to them. They buy cheap and sell high. So it's retail investors that actually buy high and hope it continues higher. So most times, hope is actually the last to die, right? They become so hopeful that it will still be going up. So technically, smart money has left. These are hype buyers, trying to follow the market down. But except smart money comes to this market, it will just obey to ASI. Something else, I need to clarify that if you're a long-time holder of Firstholdco, this my analysis on Firstholdco does not apply to you. Like if you've been holding Firstholdco for years, like you're a long-time holder of Firstholdco, this analysis does not apply to you. Keep holding your Firstholdco. Do not sell for anything in the world, right? But if you're the type that just bought Firstholdco, around this area, around the 63 naira, 73 naira, 85 naira area, then you should have left this market. This my analysis is for people in your category, right? Not for the category of people who have been holding Firstholdco, long time ago. So next, let's see how MTN is trading or what's going on in MTN, because we touched on MTN last week. Let's see what's going on there. So if you remember vividly, right, last week I also was screaming and yelling that do not buy MTN for now. Do not buy MTN for now, because technically MTN is getting weak and weak every day. So if you think that the weakness you saw last week was a discount, there's still gonna be more discount down the line. So do not buy MTN for now. All right, do not buy MTN. It just seems to me that during the last correction and slight recovery, MTN did not actually recover. MTN did not recover because there's no activities of smart money, in MTN right now. No buying, in fact, there's more of selling than buying. So smart money, they're not beginning to sell. If anything, they're not beginning to sell. And the reason they are selling is because they know that, retail will sell eventually. Then they want a more cheaper entry. So you are the bait right here. Forget about ASI. You are the bait, because that's how smart money operates. Smart money use other smart money and mostly retail investors to make profits, and it's completely legal. That's the manipulation of the market, right? That's how money is being made in the market. So this is why I have a group where I kind of spot their activities and tell my core members, hey guys, do not enter, or hey guys, this is the time to enter, right? That's MTN for you right now. So MTN is currently still looking weak, and no recovery in sight, no support at all. And what still, ASI is still getting. In fact, it's the sell-off of MTN and other large cap stocks that is making ASI weak. So it's like a contribution of everything. Let's leave aside the macros, the news surrounding the stock market. We just on technical analysis right now. Forget about the foreign participation or whatnot, right? This is what technical analysis is telling us. This is the story I'm reading from here. All right, so let's check out another stock. The next we're actually looking at is UBA. So UBA, I just like using the term badly beaten, because during the last correction in June, right, UBA was part of the large cap stocks that was badly beaten such that institutional investors, that's smart money, they refuse to even accumulate. So smart money refuse to accumulate because they know they can still get it for cheap. So these are all activities of retail participation. During the July recovery, retail still came in the hopes that ASI is recovering, right? And which was, Firstholdco was partly responsible for that, fake ASI recovery. So retails came in full force, thinking they are buying the dip. So when it got to this point, Smart money who were still holding on to UBA, they now started taking the new money. Retail investors were pouring into the market because from this point, selling began. So even though selling began at this point, retail kept, they kept the pressure up. But then again, I usually tell you, when I make this kind of videos, I usually, sound it out that retail investors who do not move the market, smart money owns this market, right? Just one smart money transaction is capable of moving, UBA, and you just take its pump and dump. Let me look for like just one institutional investor, transaction. This is them, accumulation. They accumulate, and they don't stay long because they have huge buying power. So they're not that greedy for profit. Once they make a little bit of profit, they just run away. So they don't stay long. Unlike retail investors who buy with 10 million, 50 million, because we just want to make large profits, large markup. Then eventually we get trapped. So we get trapped and realize, oh, we should have left earlier. We should have been, satisfied with the earlier profit we made, right? And left earlier. Because sometimes the market just, takes a tumble. So let's go back to the present, right? UBA. So it has just been retail participation going on in UBA. And right now, yesterday, Monday, there was a huge sell-off. I can still attribute this to, smart money having to like still sell off, right? Because like I said, retail participation brought in money. Smart money that refused to sell, they just took advantage, trying to take the profit from retail investors. And let's not just forget the fact that yesterday there's some people who sold, some retail investors who sold because of today, holiday Tuesday, right? So yesterday's sale was a combination of retail and smart money, huge volume sell-off, right? So let's check out the last stock for the day. GTCO. GTCO is interesting to me right now. Very, very interesting. The story, in fact, let me just summarize the story of GTCO. Now, during the correction, the slight correction in June, right? So there was profit taking in GTCO by both retail and smart money, right? But here is the thing. Around this point, right? Another smart money we're selling, another smart money, right, we're accumulating. So yeah, it's very obvious at this point. When it became obvious that ASI will remain weak for a while, right, they just abandoned accumulation. So technically what we're seeing right now are more of retail accumulation going on, because see, no volume. So smart money abandon accumulation, fearing they might accumulate, yet it will still dip further. So they abandon accumulation, and retail buyers continue buying in hopes that it will go up. But eventually, ASI is weak. GTCO will still get cheaper. So that's actually what is happening in GTCO right now. So let's quickly take a look at ASI. So currently, ASI is still looking weak. So yesterday, more sell-off still occurred, right? So the weakness still persists. I do not guess support level. I'm not in the habit of doing that. So we'll just see how everything plays out, and when there is a kind of a new support level, it will be very evident, right? It will be very evident to see in the market. So when I notice the support level, I'll notice my core members in my Telegram group. Then we'll start spotting out where this support level, where they are, which stocks are they really occurring in, which stock is actually leading the recovery. So we'll start taking position very, very early. That's my plan going forward when it comes to NGs. But for now, I don't recommend, anyone should start buying new positions right now. It's just not worth it. Let's just see how ASI plays out. So that'll be all for today. I'll come back again, to analyze some stocks when the market open again and normal trading activities begin. So you have a nice day and see you next time.